It's a special TXWaterpolo podcast. On our Wednesday show, we shared excerpts of Joe's conversation with Baytown Sterling standout and Whittier College head coach Justin Pudwill. Now, you'll hear that entire interview covering Pudwill's journey from California to Texas twice. Before we share that conversation, polling for the quarterfinals of our Best of Texas High School tournament is now open, and you can find that at TXWaterpolo.com. And also be sure to check out Total Water Polo for all kinds of educational opportunities and news. Now, Joe with Justin Pudwill. Here you go.
All right, welcome. Today we have Justin Pudwill, who is currently the head high school referee in Houston. And Justin was also the head coach at Whittier College in Southern California from 2007 to 2008 for both the men and women. Welcome, Justin. How are you doing?
Good, Joe. How are you?
Good. How are you surviving during our COVID-19 situation?
It's interesting. There's a lot less people around, and the weather's really nice, but yet you still aren't supposed to go anywhere, which is unique. So
for sure.
Having young kids makes it quite interesting. But it's been pretty good. I did recently with my younger kids, we started gardening.
Nice.
So I will it turned into a trip to the local nursery, and I thought plants were cheap and then realized they are not cheap. So I am now going to make sure this garden survives one way or the other.
That's probably how they do it. So just kind of tell us about, so how many kids do you have?
I have 4 kids. I have 18, 16, 9, and 6.
Nice. That is a nice wide range. Are you doing, besides gardening, are you doing kind of anything fun with yourself, your family, and stuff like that?
No. As you kind of know, the couple coffee shops that I have kind of keep me busy in the morning half. I think if the government were to shut down everything, like say everybody go home for 3 odd weeks or whatever, which I don't think it will get to, but I was kind of hoping, because then I would have, I vowed to learn a musical instrument in like 3 weeks. I was going to make sure I got that done.
But how long have you been telling yourself that you do that though?
Well, since this started.
Okay.
I do. I would love to learn a musical instrument. I love music. That's a whole nother tangent I can go off on. But it was just like, well, if they do, my kids will sleep till 9, so I can get up at like 5 in the morning and learn a musical instrument. And that was my plan if they did. But now I get home in the 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We check on our awesome garden that we got going on, and then usually get in the pool. And by that time, it's either take a bike ride and make dinner and kind of hunker down,
and then fall asleep to Netflix at night. So, yeah. I think at least that's what I think everyone else is doing out there. Now, you said you owned a couple coffee shops. So, why don't you kind of just let us know where they're at?
Pura Coffee is on I-10 and Antoine on the west side of Houston, and then Birdhouse Coffee is in Missouri City, Texas, like right off Highway 6.
Yeah, so everybody just help out the little mom and pop little shops out there, and please, but a lot of people of 2018, but a lot of people, I don't think they know that you actually grew up in Texas and played high school water polo in Texas.
I moved from Huntington Beach, California, the middle of my junior year of high school. Okay. So, I did a year and a half at Ross S. Sterling.
In Baytown?
Yeah, in Baytown. And then from there, went to college. But yeah, I grew up in California. My dad was kind of in the oil realm of business. And so he got transferred the middle of my junior year. So, it was definitely unique coming from Huntington Beach to Baytown, Texas.
That is a big kind of difference there.
Yeah.
So as far as water polo was concerned, I kind of had you played out in HB before coming.
Yeah, I grew up, like I said, in Huntington Beach. I played at Ocean View High School in Huntington, and then I was predominantly a baseball player for my whole life. And then my freshman year of high school, started doing water polo to get out of PE. And the coach was a liar. He said it was basically hanging out in trunks and getting a tan. And I already surfed in the morning, so I was like, well, this will be perfect. Like, as long as I don't have to be in this, kind of whacked out PE class. I was like, I'm in. I didn't have baseball till the spring, so started doing it, and it was horrible at first, and it was, I didn't really like being horrible, so kind of accelerated kind of my thirst for the game, whatever. But I could throw the ball extremely hard.
There you go. I mean, your competitive kind of like the instincts kind of kicked in a little bit.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you it wasn't just hanging out in the swim trunks on the pool deck at Ross Sterling.
No, not at all. Yeah. So that was, the unique thing, I was quite good in California, like an average player, I guess, in that realm. It was, by no means a superstar or anything, but the one thing about moving to Baytown with Coach Mac was he tells his stories. Like, one of his most favorite days was the day he was in the office and they called him from the counselor's office and said, "Hey, we have this kid who just moved into Baytown and Sterling, his school. He's from California and he plays water polo." And I think Coach Max says, "Is he big?" And they said, "Yeah, he's pretty tall." And so within 45 seconds, he's running down the hallways, panting, having almost having a heart attack. So, but he definitely took it way more serious than the two junior college guys that coached us at Ocean View. So that was quite refreshing to get a little bit more structure. But then it was definitely a much different sport than what I was used to in California. So.
But did you have fun playing here?
I did. I mean, oh man, yeah. It was unique because there were some teams that were good and a lot of solid players, and there were some teams that were not very good, and so I didn't really get to play that long, and that kind of was a bummer. Just because if I scored 6 or 7 goals in 3 minutes, that was my time. So. Once they figured out, I think, who I was, I really never went one-on-one with a lot of guys after about game 10. I usually had 2 or 3 guys on me. So it was quite interesting at times, but it was good. I met a lot of super awesome people, lifelong friends, which was cool.
And then you went and played water polo in college kind of afterwards, right?
Yeah. One of the premier institutions for water polo. And this is how premier it was when I attended. My first 2 years, it was named one thing, and the last 2 years, it was something else. So my first 2 years, it was Salem Techio University, which was water polo school in West Virginia. Again, I make some really unique choices at times.
Okay, we all make our unique choices out there.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, it's now called Salem International. It's still and it's in West Virginia. It's not a one-stop light town. It's a one-stop sign town. That's how big it was.
Yep. It was I believe the best story I have about that is my freshman year. I was going to drive there. My dad was tuning up my truck the day I was going to leave or before I was going to leave. And he broke the carburetor off. And so my mom had to call off work, and we had training camp in 2 days, and she was like, "Okay, I got to drive you up there." And my parents are old school, so I did everything on my own for college. Applications, phone calls, recruiting, everything. They didn't do one portion of it. And so my mom, we're driving up to Salem, and we get off on whatever it is. I think it's called Main Street off like 20. And my mom's just laughing. She's like, "Are you serious?" I had to tell her, "Shut up. You're not paying a dime for this. So leave me alone." So, yeah, it was, but it was, I mean, I enjoyed it. I played, water polo, swimming, and baseball there. So I was really busy.
And then after you came back to Texas, do you play a little semi-pro baseball?
Yeah, a couple months in and around the College Station area. I did the same thing with water polo right after I was done. I played in Canada for a couple months. I knew a guy there who was on their like national junior team, so I went and was able to stay with him and train with their junior national team and their club team in Ontario, which was a lot of fun. And then, was at College Station, and it was a deterrence of becoming an adult, basically. Made no money, but I did get to keep playing sports, which was fun at a competitive level.
And I'm sure you got a free meal here or there, right? So.
Oh, free housing, free food. It was awesome. Yeah. I mean, it was a 21-year-old's dream.
Yeah, like exactly. And then I moved down to Texas. I grew up in Texas, and then I moved back to Texas in January of 2003. And you were there, kind of helping Scott with some club. Scott Slay with some club water polo. And then you moved out to kind of California. But before you moved out, I believe you coached some pretty good players there, like kind of back in Baytown, kind of whenever they were, a bunch of 10 and unders?
Yeah, let's see. Scott had been home for a year after he was at Slippery Rock, and we kind of met each other. And plus, we kind of knew each other while I was at Sterling, so we kind of developed a good friendship just being in the area. And then of course, playing against each other. But Scott had been back for a year after he was done at Slippery Rock. And then I was back 1 year following. And so he started Dirty Bay water polo, which was, a lot of the high school kids, and then some of the kids, a lot of siblings from the summer swim team. I think it was like Baytown Barracudas. I don't even remember.
I think it's had a couple different names kind of over the years. So
yeah. So the core group of kids we had, which went on to be extremely good players, was like the Zane Bilal, Stevie Ray, Matt Chappa, Amy Olson. Trying to think what else.
And Katie and Darla.
Katie Vasquez, Darla. Yeah, there was a good group. My sister was that age. She might have been a year younger than them. But those were kids who it kind of shows. I think there's some of the, or they have some extremely good success stories as having water polo kind of take you through college and education. But that group of kids, definitely saw a lot of different facets of water polo, and it got them to a lot of different places. They were all extremely good.
And those are the kids that played for Sterling back in the late 2000s and such, and kind of dominated kind of the high school water polo world then.
Yeah.
But you left at this, I guess you started at Occidental?
Yeah, I was the assistant men's and women's coach for water polo at Occidental. I want to say 03, 05, or 04 to 06. It might be 04 to 06. I did 2 years there, and then, kind of decided, okay, I think I think I would be a quality head coach. And so then I left there and went to Huntington Beach High School, and I was there for, I finished the year out, but I kind of knew I was getting the job at Whittier, let's say like the end of CIF swim season. So I coached everything at Huntington Beach with another another coach there, men's and women's, or boys and girls water polo, and then boys and girls. I was also the swim coach as well. So, and then started at Whittier in 2007.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Was that a big step from the high school coaching ranks to the college coaching ranks?
No, I mean, the really unique thing about my time at Occidental was the coach that was there, the head coach, had a ton of respect for me and kind of what I viewed in the game and how I trained the kids. So I felt like I got to do a lot, which was really cool. And I know that there's some assistants that don't have as much involvement in the programs at times. So I kind of took that and always wanted to make sure I incorporated it, so that I was always doing a good job for my assistants once I became a head coach. But no, it wasn't. I was, of course, definitely, you know, as when I started coaching, the pinnacle, I guess, in the United States is being able to coach at the collegiate level. You know, that's
Sure.
kind of like our ceiling other than the national team and stuff like that. So
There's very few spots there.
yeah. And there's very few spots in the at the collegiate coaching rank. So, you know, I got that job when I was 26. And so I think I was the youngest coach in the NCAA history for a while. There might be some now, but yeah, I always tell my boss, I said, was I your fourth choice, or was I the only person who took it for the money? You know, like, because Whittier was not, it had some success before I got there in like 2004 on the men's side, but it wasn't a powerhouse, and it was a really, really small school. But I didn't really kind of understood. I was like how I ended up with that gig. So maybe it's true to form. You got to be a little lucky sometimes. Right place, right time. You want to say it.
Yeah, and exactly. And I think Whittier was lucky to have you. For those that don't know, Justin made Whittier into a powerhouse, and he was probably one of the best recruiters that I've ever seen. And just kind of tell us a little bit about those years, about kind of how you built the program and kind of sustained the success.
Well, it was unique. I think it took me a year to kind of figure out. For those who don't know, like, the most candid thing I can say about collegiate water polo and being a coach is recruiting is 90% of it. It's just,
I agree.
It's very encompassing. You can be the best coach in the world, but if you don't have kids that can do what you need them to do, it's going to be extremely hard. You know, so it was definitely, it took me about a year to kind of navigate things and kind of figure out what the niche was for Whittier and what kind of kids I could get or were recruitable, and stuff like, you know, it took a little time to kind of build the savviness of that. But it was my third year on the men's side was our first national championship. So we actually lost in the semifinals of SCIAC conference, but went on to beat Air Force in the first round of WWPA. So I think it was one of the highest finish for a SCIAC team in the WWPA in history. I'm pretty sure, at least modern day history. And then it took me a little while to kind of get the girls program running, just kind of where I wanted it to. But after a while, the good thing about collegiate sports is, and especially if you're a recruitable athlete, is being able to talk to the current athletes that are there. And after you've been there for a while, I think a lot of athletes want to know that you're credible. So if I told a senior, hey, this is where I think you would help us out in our program, and this is what I think I'm going to be able to offer you here, whether it's competing for a championship or playing time and stuff like that. You want your current athletes to be able to hold true to that. Can be like, yeah, coach is telling the truth, you know, like everything he's telling you is going to be exactly correct.
Yeah.
Which, you know, in the collegiate coaching athletics, sometimes it's not always honest, and people will say some things to kind of get a kid there or whatever they need to do. And I think that kind of comes back and kind of will bite you reputation wise, and that stuff doesn't play out very long. So
I completely agree with you. And as far as the coaching, as you know, I coached in college kind of a little bit, and I was always like, I'm just going to be completely and utterly honest. This is the way it is. This is the way I am. And I do believe that you have to be like kind of honest kind of with the athletes, and you have to, or they have to know that you care. And because they're going to ask why. And if you answer the question, if they know that you care, they're going to believe you. So,
yeah. And I just, I was like, well, I'm not gonna, I was kind of like not scared, but I was an extremely disciplined coach, and I made my teams work extremely hard. I always told people I want to. This might be Division III water polo, but I'm going to give you all of the Division I got. Like anything I can do to make us better, we are going to do it. We will train harder than any team in our conference. We will put in more hours. I will put in more research. I will scout more. I will do whatever I have to do. So, my first couple of years, I don't think I really would tell a recruit that, and then I just said, oh, whatever. I'm just going to tell them exactly what they're going to get, because if they came there and then they were like, oh no, I didn't I didn't think it was going to be like this.
Exactly.
And you would have an unhappy athlete or an unhappy coach, and so it just didn't work out. So I feel like once by my third year at Whittier, we kind of had some success. We tailed off a little bit. I mean, a little bit was like, for me, after a while, not being in the championship game. And that was just due to our facility being built. So like after 2009, I went through 2 years with no pool. We were traveling.
Never fun.
Traveling nomads. But then by the first year, we got our pool at Whittier, I want to say 2012 for the men. I think it was 2012. By the next year, we were in the championship game, and so were the women. And so I think from there, 2012 to 2018, I think I was in every SCIAC championship game.
Yeah, I mean, I think you had like a lot of tremendous success. So I think it kind of surprised some people when you chose to kind of pack up the family and drive cross country, and come to Sugar Land, Texas.
That's
so
right.
what kind of prompted that move?
I mean, coaching it takes a lot of time. I missed a lot of my older kids' youth, and when I've been there, it was like year 10. I think I was there for 11 years. Like year 10, I just came to a point where it said, well, if we're going to keep doing this, they're going to have to make it worth my while. And I had kind of gotten some other looks or hushes at times from other programs and, bigger programs, notable kind of Division I programs, and about making a move maybe, or if I'd be interested. And I love my time at Whittier. It was a perfect spot. But again, if I was going to make it worth my while, when it came down to it, I had to ask that they wouldn't or couldn't fulfill. And so I could have kept coaching there for, what I was making forever, probably. But I just decided, well, I didn't think it was worth it anymore. It's just too much. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of time.
I know. And kind of their loss is Texas's gain. Has the move kind of worked out well for you and your family?
It's been super awesome. Yeah. I mean, I do it over again, 99 out of 100 times. So quality of life, I get to see my kids a lot more. The money here goes tremendously longer.
There you go. Yeah, like you probably came here and what do they say? You can buy a 3 times bigger house for a third of the cost as
like a
California.
seventh of the cost. Yeah.
There you go.
And you get older and you start having kids, so things kind of, they become you have different views and kind of goals once you get to a certain point of what's important. There's some coaches that like they have to coach, like their identity is in coaching and their soul is in coaching, like everything they have. And not to say that I didn't put that in there, but I didn't need it to, I guess, be happy or like survive, so it wasn't something where, unfortunately, it wasn't that hard. I was like, well, they made it pretty easy for me to say, okay. So, living out in the suburbs of Houston, it's awesome.
We've reached the halfway point of our conversation with Justin Pudwill, and we'll come right back after this.
In many podcasts, this time would be filled with ads for electric toothbrushes or recruiting services. Not here. Instead, we're asking you to show your support for TXWaterpolo by donating to it. Go to TXWaterpolo.com/donate and help us continue covering the sport we love in the Lone Star State.
Hi, I'm U.S. Olympian Janai Kerr, and when I need to stay up to date with my water polo news in Texas, I listen to the TX Waterpolo podcast.
Now more with Justin Pudwill.
So now that you're back here, and you hadn't really been back here for an extended period of time, I guess, since the early 2000s, kind of thoughts on the growth of kind of water polo on the high school level, the club level, just in general?
Well, it's all grown tremendously. I guess what was that, right around 2001 when I was back and working with Scott Slay when we were at Baytown. I think we were the only year-round club in all of Houston. So we would get kids that would drive from Alvin, Humble, the west side of Houston, Katy, to come to our practices. Like they drove from hours, like an hour and a half away, which was cool. But now I definitely think on the club scene, there's definitely a lot more options, which is good. And to kind of stay within your I don't know if you could do it in just one city, but kind of like in your area. And I think that's a good model,
Yeah. I think there's about 7 probably full-time year-round water polo clubs kind of down in Houston. And I talked to some of the coaches and they're like, just people don't want to drive the 10-15 minutes. They have no idea.
Yeah, no idea. You get that in California. You got kids that drive from Riverside Monday through Friday to go practice at, like out in Tustin where SoCal's at. Like that's an insane drive to make it like 5 o'clock.
Yes. But they're making that drive for a different reason, right? For the reason that people kind of used to make the drive because that was the only option in town.
Yeah. Well, this wasn't even that long ago. There's just, there are a lot more options in Southern California, and you get those people that, they do drive that. There's perfectly good clubs out there, and I understand, and we're getting more towards the athlete specialization, and, parents are very highly involved in, trying to make things successful for their kids and what they think is right and wrong and stuff like that. But,
well, like the one thing that I deal with a lot of coaches and club admins and they will go, well, this club's recruiting my kids here, or kids jumping from this club to this club, and I'm like, well, these are the first world water polo problems. We never had these problems kind of before, when there was only one club and such, and there was probably only one true year-round club almost throughout the 2000s. Just kind of down in Houston. So now we have probably 20 different kind of youth clubs in Texas. This is great.
Yeah, no, it's good. And the high school scene there's definitely a lot more teams playing, which is a positive. And the UIL, sanctioning for 2021, that's positive. All that stuff's positive. There's still quite a long way to go in multiple facets of water polo in Texas, as there is in a lot of places. But I think that gauge of growth is probably pretty solid since I left last time. So that's pretty good. At least it's not the same, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for those that didn't hear at the beginning, Justin's the head high school referee in Houston. So, before the whole COVID-19 started, there was a ton of new referees in Houston. That's a credit to you. Thank you so much. Kind of, how did that happen, and how was it going?
I think it was going well. I mean, this is my first season, so I didn't really have much to gauge it from, but we added anywhere from 30 to 40 new officials in the Houston area, and from what I've been told, that was really good.
That's fabulous.
Yeah, so I ran 3 or 4 clinics kind of in the winter, kind of leading up to season. And I just think that the group or officials as a whole needed, kind of somebody to say, like, I got your back, like I'll be there if you guys need help, education, training, whatever it may be. And so I just tried to provide that. It actually didn't take a ton of effort to be able to get there, but we got a really good, there was probably 8 solid officials that we just came out that were first years that could do a very good job in this area, and then 10 that were like development and needed help, and then 10 that were like, hey, if you give it a season, by next year you'll be even better. So it was good, and it was going well. We had 0 problems. Everyone was showing up on time in proper attire, which was good. The professionalism was one thing I really wanted to work on in water polo overall.
Of course, yes.
That's a whole nother podcast I can go off on. The state of our sport, and if you want to take things seriously, don't show up to coach a game in a tank top and flip-flops and then
backwards hat and ripped shorts and such. Yes, I completely agree.
Yeah, then we can have a discussion. So but it was going well. Like I said, we had some very positive feedback. The signer, Joe Rubio, I think, was doing a good job as a first year in his role, and trying to make sure that we kind of work together. But it was going good. It was kind of a bummer to kind of see everything put on hold, because I was quite impressed with where the officials organization was going. In the Houston area, I thought it was doing. We had a really good first step.
Yeah, I heard only good things from down there, and the best thing that I heard was the relationship between the refs on deck and the coaches on deck. It was cordial and professional, and nothing kind of like there wasn't anything that escalated.
Yeah, no, and I tried to just kind of inform and educate from all realms, being involved in this sport in many different facets and seeing it on many different levels. If the sport in Texas is going to elevate and get better, it's going to take everyone, high school coaches, club coaches, parents, officials. And so I thought I did a very good job in just kind of educating our officials about being professional and making their product look professional, like they cared, like they were there to do the best job possible. And so I did kind of send out a couple of precursors to coaches about what this season meant for 2021 and moving forward, and what I would appreciate them to do, and vice versa. And I didn't get any feedback, so it must have been positive. I guess I didn't get anything, but kind of open the communication between coaches and officials. I told coaches, if you want to send me clips of certain scenarios with an official for a teaching moment, like I am totally down for that. Keep me up to date, make sure that, my group is staying professional. And so I think it was going really well. So it's a start. It's a start.
No, and then we have another little dry run season for next spring, the last kind of club high school season.
Yep.
And then we got fall of 2021, and thank you so much for all the effort and time down there.
Yeah, no problem.
And then I'm sure you've listened to kind of the Mac kind of podcast that we've had the last couple of weeks, right?
Yeah.
So you played for Mac. Any thoughts on like kind of what Mac was saying and stuff, or the history of water polo in Texas, like kind of some of the best teams, boys, girls, except?
Yeah, I do, and he shouldn't have been so bashful, but that his I guess it was 2001. I have two boys teams that I think had the most talent, and I think they won their years. The 01 Sterling group with Dustin Fleming, Dusty Gaudet, Trace Ruddick, my brother Andrew Pudwill, Jay Ray was on that squad. Stevie Ray and Zane, they were all freshmen, so they were all really young, or eighth graders, and so I was there coaching during that time. That was an exceptionally good team, very strong. They only lost one game, and I think they beat Clear Creek in the final, like 12-4. Like, it was stomping.
Just the domination.
Yeah, and then the Zane, Stevie, Matt Chappa, that group whenever they were seniors was really good. And I only base that on this, looking at it as a college coach, like that group, I tried to recruit Matt, Zane, Stevie. I think those were the three, and we had some ties to it, of course. And then looking back on it, on my brother's, that 01 team, there were 3 or 4 kids that could play at a high level in college. They wouldn't have been, superstars or anything, but they would make a dramatic impact on a program, I think. So that's kind of how I look at it. The women's team, I do remember that St. Agnes team that he was talking about, because I think I played that year. I was a senior, and I think they were really strong, and they were all really good up the middle. Like, they had a really good goalie, and I can't remember who was what, but that girl, a really good center and a really good center defender.
Oh, Jenny Edwards?
Yes, and I think she went to Hartwick. I can't remember exactly where they went, but I always kind of look at, like, success sometimes is making sure that sport gets you to college, and if you're having a place where you have value and you have a really good career, if you get like 4 or 5 of those on one high school team, they're going to be pretty good.
Yeah. Like, people used to ask me, so Joe, what team's going to win here? And then and they go, yeah, just give me a sec. And I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They are. I go, and he goes, so what do you count up? I go, oh, the amount of kids that did club water polo.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I mean, and then a lot of the coaches for the club teams kind of back then and now, I think they do a good job of kind of creating some strong foundation for success. And it's not just water polo skills, it's the life skills. And those are the type of things that the college coaches are looking for.
Yeah, no, and that, I would say in Texas, directly probably has direct correlation on your success. Like, how much club water polo do you play and how early do you start?
Exactly.
And putting in, time and effort. So, but yeah, I mean, I missed a good portion of it, but I did recruit a lot of kids out of Texas at times. And usually you have some kind of tie to that kid, whether it's like, oh, that coach used to be my, we're really good friends, or, you get a recommendation here or there, or I coached that kid when they were 8 and now they're 18, or
30 or whatever it could be.
Yeah, which is true to form. But yeah, I don't don't remember, too many, I would guess, like team wise, because once I got into college coaching, I was definitely more just interested in the athlete, right? Like I could care less who wins, right? So it was like, I'm watching that athlete over there because I think they can help me win at my level. So.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, and it's in playing in college, I think that's a goal, but that's not an end game necessarily because a kid needs to find what's going to be best for them. But that's always going to be the goal, and I think just giving a lot of opportunities out there for athletes and kind of just showing them the different options. That's like the key thing. There are opportunities for players from Texas to go play at the next level.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's after doing it as long as I have, I always would try when I would recruit kids is trying to tell them is like, you want to make sure you find like the best fit, like somewhere where you're going to have value, because no kid I ever recruited said, well, like, I'm looking forward to going to Whittier just so I can ride the bench. And so many athletes have illusions of grandeur, and not that it's bad or not that it's wrong. It's just a little bit different in kind of how I would view, playing sports in college. Like I played sports from the time I was 4 all the way up till I was 24 when I stopped playing water polo. And I couldn't imagine going to a college or a university and riding the bench for 4 years. And I would kick myself even more if it was because I shot too high and went to a school just because your high school coach says you're the best, or your parents, or blah, 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 whatever. And then they end up going somewhere and it's like, that kid would have started for me at Whittier and been a 4-time All-American. And I think they scored 2 goals their whole college career and quit by their junior year.
Yeah, I tell kids, I sit them down, and kids, or at least I used to sit kids down and go, okay, A, B, C, or D. A, you are part of their solution. You're going to play your freshman year and go forward from there.
Yeah.
B, okay, you may not play a whole lot your freshman year, but but you're definitely going to play. C, all right, you're probably going to play your junior, senior year. D, you might play your senior year. Well, what do you want? And be honest, because if you don't want C, D, and you only want A, B, then you're going to eliminate a ton of schools out there.
Yes.
So, but you have to be realistic, and that's what I tell. That's what I still tell like the parents and athletes and coaches today. Just make sure you're realistic, and don't. And there are some good programs. Like there are people that say, I only want to play Division I. I'm like, okay, well, there are Division II and Division III teams that are in the top 20 that are beating the crap out of a bunch of Division I teams.
Correct.
And that's a little bit different than the rest of the sports world, and that's what I don't think people know.
Yeah, there were still at times, even 11 years in at Whittier, and winning 5 national championships, and we beat teams in the top 10, like teams we had no business ever beating. We should have never beat.
I think you had some pretty strong teams in there for a couple of years.
No, I did, but if I look at it as if, Division III, we have restrictions, right? I had no athletic scholarships, and we had time restrictions. At a Division I school, there's no restrictions. You can train year-round all the time. You have to take breaks here and there. So if I had that ability to be able to do that with some of my teams, I think we would have been extremely, extremely good.
There's some challenges, but there's so many opportunities. I know nobody told me of a bunch of different opportunities. Yeah, kind of back in the early 90s, whenever I graduated. And now there are a ton of opportunities. And there's even an opportunity here in our state, and there's going to be more opportunities in our state kind of down the line. So just if you're listening kind of out there, just open your mind, talk to everybody. Yeah. And listen to the coach.
There's a lot of good, like I said, you want to find the best fit. I think finding the best fit and find somewhere where you're going to have value all colleges, universities, they're all good. They all do a good job in the education. It just depends, like, if you want to go to a big school, you're going to cut out a lot of water polo schools, and then you're going to be in a whole nother water polo realm, because most of the big schools are all D1. And there's going to be, when you show up on deck your first day and there's 55 men on deck, and you're like, oh no.
and of that there were 30 freshmen, and the next year there's going to be another 30 freshmen. So there you go. Yeah. There are plenty of good opportunities kind of out there. Yeah. So whenever I have the different coaches on, I always like to ask them a question. So kind of, what type of coach are you? So what kind of what kind of are your core values as a coach, and kind of what you want to do with the program and such?
In a nutshell, I was extremely disciplinarian, I guess, is how I would maybe put it. Very focused.
You're preaching to the choir, by the way.
Yeah, I think, I wanted things, I didn't have a lot of time to if I tell this to Joe now, like, I hope he gets it by tomorrow. Like, when you have to be a master of a 3-month season, you've got to get stuff done immediately. Exactly. Like, there's no time. And I will give a lot of props to a good number of coaches in that SCIAC conference that starts August 20th and has a very solid water polo product by the time you get to November. That's an extremely hard thing to do. And so we had a lot of really good coaches who were good at that one thing. And so that was another thing, is I think I got pretty good at being able to do that, like getting the best out of my kids in 3 months. 2, I coached as if I never wanted to let the kids down. Like, nobody wants to have that, oh, I'm sorry, we got so close, like, just hoping to make it to a championship game was never enough. And I just wanted to give them the best product, so you didn't have to give that talk. That talk sucks. I mean, as many times as I've won, I've given half of those talks as well, and it's defeating, and so I just tried to work as hard as possible. I don't really have any coaching philosophy, and tactics is one thing, but I tried to give the kids the program that, I would talk to them when I was recruiting, like, you're going to work extremely hard. And for that, in return, you get to compete for championships. Like, we'll be there at the end. You have the possibility to go into the Hall of Fame at Whittier and have banners hung and wear rings. And that was something I made true on a lot, which was good for me, or else I would have looked like an idiot.
No, I think you did a great job there, and just working hard and working harder than the next coach, that's all a kid can ask for. There was one time where a bunch of kids were sitting around and they were talking about their coach does this or their coach does that, and I stopped and go, hey, you know what? I am a little bit meaner than a lot of them, but but we know that you care. And then I started thinking about it. Yeah. And then I started thinking, so what do I do to make them know that I care? And just working hard and showing up and being organized and being blunt and straightforward and not wasting their time of everything that you talked about. You're right in my little, that is kind of right in my alley for sure. So.
Yeah. And I mean, there's good ways. Like, I would say I was very, not mean, but I was very anxious, and I wanted to win really bad right away. And it might, it doesn't always go like that,
No.
they'll give you all the adages. It's like you got to lose first to win and blah blah blah. But I was extremely focused, and then from my first 5 years at Whittier to my last 5 years, I definitely realized that kind of like not being softer, but having some more relaxed moments at times created a really good just between me and the kids, rather than they were always just really scared on how angry I was going to be.
Well, a kid once told me, they're not mean. He's just honest.
yeah. No, I tell them, the kids who played for me my first 5 years at Whittier, I tell them all the time, like, there's probably things I could have done better just within the relationship between me and the players that I probably would have got a much better result out of. And I tell them that all the time. Like we probably, if I failed a group and we didn't make it as far as I thought we did, looking back at it now, I could say like, I could have done some things differently, and just rapport wise. And my kids always worked really hard for me. Like it didn't, you would have problems here or there, blah, 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 and stuff like that. That's normal. That comes throughout being an athlete and a coach. But I think my last 5 years, I definitely did a much better job. Like my team wanted to really play hard for me rather than they're scared to play not hard for me. If that makes sense.
And that's just you being yourself and kind of getting the buy-in from everybody, and then the kids buy in, and
yep.
And then it's just like the success takes care of the success. It just kind of builds on itself. So, well, Justin, thank you so much for joining us on the TXWaterpolo podcast. I do appreciate it. Just kind of take care and be safe and stay healthy.
You too, Joe. Take care.
All right, thanks.
Well, that's it. Thanks to Justin Pudwill for spending a good chunk of time Skyping with Joe, and thank you for listening and for your support of TXWaterpolo.com. Until next week, so long from Austin.
Spend it on myself and you, trying to turn the world into a playground with all my might. Tables are turned and the ride is on the way round. Hold on tight, waiting in line, running my mind. I can't wait to get out again. Counting the time, thinking of anything to get out again.
This has been a production of TWP Sports LLC.
My dog is scratching at the door.
I can hear him.